It is a big thing to think about how do you move during the winter, during a pandemic, how do you change jobs, find a new place to live. I'm wearing, tights underneath my jeans because I've had to figure that out. And this is my first pandemic. So
hopefully your last.
The last show I saw here was a taping of Alec Baldwin's podcast, and he was interviewing Ben and Jerry. Other than that, mostly I just play the shows.
I was going to say, I'm actually very embarrassed. I've only ever played here on the shows, all this.
You've said,
yeah. VSO Symphony, and that was my first time in this big space.
The Flynn is where we kick off our seasons. Yeah. Every year, without a doubt. We are a statewide organization. It's in our mission to make sure we get to all four corners and everything in between. But the Flynn, that is the home. I'm looking forward to us coming back here, and I'm hoping and aiming that in October of 2021 is going to be a return. Okay. It will not look the same. But still, to get as many musicians as we can have safely on the stage playing together, that's the goal.
Feels like that lock doesn't work.
It's very hard to hear.
Here, yes, it always is on the stage.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was the artistic director of the Champlain Center for the Performing Arts in Philadelphia for the last 11 plus years. So the Champlain Center serves a relatively small geographic region, but that's 5 million people.
Right.
Whereas the Flynn, really being the state theater, serves a pretty large geographic region. How different rural communities, different farming communities, how do we serve those folks in meaningful ways through the arts? And as everybody's asking me, well, how does COVID change the arts? I don't know. Ask me in a year, 3 years, 20 years, we'll tell you. But what are our responsibilities? If the building, this glorious building we're sitting in, can't be of service to the community, it doesn't mean we don't still have an obligation to be of service to the community. And here's a bold statement. Art only happens in public space. So one of the things we do with buildings is we open them up to the public so that we can have this artistic moment. But at night, when the doors are locked and the public aren't allowed in, there's probably not a lot of art going on.
Right.
So public space now changes because now public space is a place that we're prohibited from, we're encouraged to avoid. It's a place that has biological hazard. That's a really unusual thing to think about. The organization has an obligation to serve this community. And so how are we going to do that?
Right.
We don't stop doing that if the doors are closed. So the doors have to be porous. They have to never really close.
Yeah.
The team here had an amazing experiment they did in the fall called Hurly-Burly. And they knew instantly, it's exactly what I just said. They said, oh, well, we have to go to where we can bring people together. That's our job, is to convene people. So we're going to go do that.
We're show people. We put on shows. So sitting around not doing shows was agony for us. And in the summer, things were a little better. The weather was better. The regulations had been relaxed a little bit. We could gather up to 150 people outdoors. And so what we did was we rented a truck, flatbed truck, and we would, with the help of the Parks Department, we would take it to a park, and there would be a band that would perform on it. And the way we regulated the amount of people was we announced the series. So there was going to be these artists in parks, but we wouldn't announce which park or what time until the morning of the show. So it was a really great series in 8 different parks. It was really emotional for people, for me, for the artists, for people to perform again.
For us who actually play on stage, it is quite a change. We went from playing in front of people regularly and then just nothing.
I thought a lot about the national dialogue right now. At a time when reasonably many people are questioning their ability to be legitimately seen in our communities, the arts not being there is devastating. If we were to measure the success of a dictatorship, it's a strange thing to want to do, but let's just say we're doing that. Okay. We're looking back on history and we're like, how good were they at being a dictator? Usually we would look at how well they controlled the message, how well they singularly were allowed their point of view to be the dominant point of view. Could you judge the success of democracy by how flourishing a multiplicity of perspectives are? And so if you said, all right, if everybody had opportunity to tell their story, you would want as many opportunities for that to happen for democracy to work. So at a time when we're questioning the strength of our democracy, exactly at the time when there's virtually no public funding for the arts in schools, certainly where I come from in Philadelphia, are virtually non-existent, you could start to think, perhaps one of the ways in which we got to a dangerous place in our democracy is because we haven't let the arts do their job. If we want to raise voting rates in our community, maybe we should give more money to the arts and hold them accountable to that. Because if you really want to measure our success, don't ask us how many tickets we sold.
Right.
That's really not a measure that's qualitatively interesting. Ask me about voting rates and hold artists responsible for those things. That's the question I think a lot of arts organizations are getting in terms of, well, there's all these needs in the community right now, Jay. People are legitimately sick. People live in poverty. Like, how can we give money to the arts? And I said, well, you can't if you look at it as entertainment.
Right.
You can't if you look at it as the thing you do after you've done everything else. You can if you ask artists to solve these problems.
It's not enough to just practice your way to the stage. It's not enough just to show up right before the concert, do your thing, and say hello to a few donors and get it back in the car and rush home, right? It's no longer enough to just do...
Enough is a hard word, because it quantifies it.
That's true.
But I would say it's not really what the artists want. Artists are in this field because they want to make a difference in their community.
Right, yeah.
So what you have to do is you have to get everybody else on board to give the artists time and space to do that.
I never really wanted to play any other instrument. There's just a richness to the cello that feels like me. There's a sound that feels like me. When the idea of empty stages came up, it was sort of really far-fetched, first of all. There's just been so many supportive people of the project and the idea. I bet a lot of people have never been to the Flynn, and I bet a lot of people have never been to some of these spaces, and it might be a long time till they can. But just to know how much they impact all these communities across the state and how much they impact all the artists that live here, I think was always our hope. It's been really, really amazing, and something I think we're all really proud of, because we're proud of the state, we're proud of the halls that we play in, and we're proud to play together and call this home.
There's a lot of murals I see in Burlington, which is
Lots.
great. But I have this imagination that like some people get together and go, we're going to build a wall. They build it. And then they go, well, we should get a painter to decorate it. And I think, well, what if you had brought the artist to the conversation before you built the wall? What if the artist was in the room when you decided whether to build a wall or how big or what it's made out of or where to put it? The time is not to decorate it.
Yeah.
Because then you've reduced essentially the engine of human empathy to decor. And that's sort of what I hope is being lifted as a conversation out of COVID. If the goal is to get people together in meaningful dialogue, then we're going to do that. And we have to be flexible about the methodology. Flynn is not going to stop asking questions about whose voices matter, how do we bring people together, how are we in service to Vermont. That's our responsibility. And we have to do that whether or not this building is open.